Welcome to Creepy Corner Stories. Darkness, silence, the unknown. These are things that trigger fear deep within us. But what if I told you that fear isn't always what it seems? That sometimes, it's not the monster under the bed, but the shadows in our own minds that haunt us the most. Tonight, we dive into 7 true stories that will change your perspective on fear. These aren't just tales of ghosts and the paranormal, but of real people who faced the unimaginable. Some lived to tell the tale, others weren't so lucky. So, turn off the lights, make sure you're not alone, and let's begin. Emily and Jake had been searching for the perfect house for months when they stumbled upon an old Victorian home at the edge of town. It was surprisingly cheap, and despite the eerie, abandoned look, they couldn't resist the deal. "Why is it so cheap?" Emily asked the real estate agent. The woman hesitated before answering. "It has a history. The last owners disappeared without a trace." Jake chuckled. "Ghost stories don't scare us. They moved in within a week." The first few nights were peaceful, but on the 4th night, Emily woke up to whispers. She nudged Jake awake. "Do you hear that?" Faint whispers, like a conversation between two people. But it wasn't coming from outside. It was inside the house. They searched the rooms, but the whispers stopped the moment they stepped into each one. The next day, Emily discovered something odd. The blueprint of the house showed one extra room that wasn't visible anywhere. No door, no entrance. "That's impossible," Jake muttered, scanning the walls where the room should be. Then, he noticed a slight crack in the wallpaper. He peeled it away, revealing an old wooden door with deep scratch marks around the handle. Heart pounding, Emily turned the knob. It was unlocked. Inside, the air was ice cold. The room was covered in dust, except for a single wooden chair in the middle. Chains lay on the floor, as if someone had been restrained there. A whisper echoed from behind them. "You found me." Emily and Jake spun around. The door slammed shut. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, turning into shrill screams. The air in the room thickened, pressing against their chests. Jake pounded on the door. It wouldn't budge. Emily reached for her phone, but her hands trembled as she saw her reflection in the dark window. It wasn't hers. The reflection smiled, a wide, unnatural grin. It stepped forward, out of the glass. Emily screamed. The figure lunged, and everything went black. When she awoke, she was tied to the chair. Jake was gone. A woman's voice whispered in her ear. "One must stay, so the other can leave." Emily thrashed against the restraints, but the chains held tight. The door creaked open, and she saw him, Jake. But his eyes were hollow. His lips curled into the same inhuman smile as the thing in the mirror. He stepped out. The door slammed shut. The whispers returned, filling the room. The house had claimed its next prisoner. And outside, Jake, or whatever wore his face now, walked free. Lisa had never been afraid of living alone. She loved the independence of her small suburban home, with its quiet neighborhood and friendly neighbors. But that changed the night she heard the first sound from the attic. A soft thump. She froze in bed, heart pounding. Mice, she told herself. Just mice. But the next night, she heard it again, this time, footsteps. She called her best friend, Nate. "You need to check up there," he said over the phone. Lisa laughed nervously. "Yeah, right. And get murdered?" "No thanks." Instead, she called a pest control service. They searched the attic the next morning. No rats. No squirrels. Nothing. That night, the noises grew louder. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. Pacing. Then, whispers. Lisa grabbed a flashlight and a kitchen knife. She stood beneath the attic door, heart hammering in her chest. She pulled the string. The wooden ladder creaked as it unfolded. Cold air rushed down. Taking a deep breath, she climbed. The attic was empty. Except for an old mattress in the corner. It was dirty, stained, and covered in dust. Next to it sat an empty water bottle and a crumpled food wrapper. Lisa's stomach churned. Someone had been living up here. Then she saw it. A hole in the wall. Small, just large enough for someone to peer through. She stepped closer and felt the blood drain from her face. The hole looked directly into her bedroom. Lisa scrambled down the attic ladder, heart racing. She locked her bedroom door and called the police. When they arrived, they searched the attic again, this time more thoroughly. And they found something. A hidden door, leading to a crawlspace between the walls. Inside, there were more food wrappers, a pile of old clothes, and a small notebook. The officer flipped through it, his face darkening. He looked at Lisa. "This notebook has dates and times recorded," he said. "Times when you were home, when you went to bed, when you showered." Lisa's hands shook as she flipped through the pages. The last entry made her stomach drop. "She looked right at me tonight. I think she knows." Her blood turned to ice. The officer's voice was urgent. "Lisa, we need to get you out of here. Now." But Lisa barely heard him, because at that moment, a floorboard creaked behind her. She turned just in time to see a shadow emerging from the hallway. Someone had never left. And they weren't hiding anymore. Lena had always hated mirrors. Ever since she was a child, she avoided looking into them for too long. Something about reflections unsettled her. So, when she moved into her new apartment and found a giant antique mirror bolted to the wall, she considered covering it. But something about it intrigued her, something off. It wasn't the cracks in the frame or the way the glass seemed too clear. It was the way her reflection lingered. One night, as she passed by the mirror, she caught something in the corner of her eye. Her reflection hadn't moved immediately, it was half a second behind. Lena froze. Slowly, she lifted her right hand. Her reflection lifted its left hand instead. She stumbled back, heart racing. That wasn't how mirrors worked. The reflection smiled. Lena hadn't smiled. The lights flickered, and when they came back on, her reflection stood closer to the glass, grinning wider. She ran out of the room. The next morning, she convinced herself she had imagined it. Lack of sleep, an overactive imagination. But then, she started noticing other things. Her reflection blinked at the wrong times. Sometimes, she would look away for a second and, when she looked back, her reflection was still facing the wrong direction. Then came the night she woke up to the sound of whispering. It was coming from the mirror. Her breath hitched as she turned on the lamp. The reflection was standing in her bedroom, not in the mirror. And it was staring at her. Lena screamed and scrambled out of bed. She grabbed the lamp and hurled it at the mirror. The glass shattered into 1,000 pieces. Silence. She stood there, panting, staring at the broken shards on the floor. Relief washed over her. It was gone. Or so she thought. The next day, she was getting ready to leave when she glanced at her phone screen. Her reflection was still smiling at her. It winked. And then, in a voice that came from inside her own head, it whispered. "Breaking the mirror doesn't get rid of me, Lena. It only lets me out." The screen went black. And behind her, the closet door slowly creaked open. Ethan was 8 years old when he first started noticing things about his parents that didn't feel right. It wasn't anything obvious. His mom still made pancakes every Sunday. His dad still took him to the park. But sometimes, just sometimes, when they thought he wasn't looking, they would stare at him. Not like normal parents. Like they didn't know who he was. One night, Ethan woke up thirsty. As he tiptoed downstairs to get water, he heard whispers coming from the kitchen. His parents were talking in hushed voices. "He's starting to notice," his mother said. His father sighed. "It's fine. Just a few more days." Ethan's stomach twisted. He was about to step forward when he saw something that made his breath catch. His mom turned slightly, and for a split second, her face glitched. Her features blurred, like a TV losing signal, before snapping back into place. Ethan ran back to bed. The next morning, they were completely normal again. Maybe he was imagining things. Maybe he had a bad dream. But that night, he locked his bedroom door. At 3 a.m., he woke up to a soft knocking. "Ethan?" It was his mother's voice. He didn't answer. The knob rattled. Then, his mother's voice came again, but it sounded wrong. Slower. Almost robotic. "Let us in, sweetheart. We know you're awake." Ethan hid under his blanket, squeezing his eyes shut. The knocking stopped. Silence. Then, a whisper right next to his ear. "We don't need the door." Ethan screamed. The next morning, he refused to leave his bed. His parents acted like nothing had happened. That evening, when his dad left for work and his mom was cooking dinner, Ethan did something he had never done before. He snuck into their bedroom. And what he found destroyed him. In the closet, there were two bodies. His real parents. Pale. Motionless. Ethan stepped back, shaking, when he heard his mother's voice behind him. "Oh, sweetheart." He turned. She was smiling, but her face was flickering again, her eyes too big, her teeth too sharp. "Why did you have to find out?" The last thing Ethan saw was her stretching mouth opening too wide, swallowing the scream that never left his lips. Ryan lived alone in a quiet apartment complex. The walls were thin, and he often heard his neighbors arguing or their TVs playing late at night. But one evening, something different happened. At exactly 2:37 a.m., he heard a knock on his door. Knock. 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 Slow. Deliberate. He froze. Who would be knocking at this hour? His phone buzzed, a text from his neighbor, Mr. Lewis. "Don't answer the door. No matter what you hear." Ryan's stomach twisted. He typed back, "Why? Who is it?" No reply. Knock. 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 Louder this time. Ryan crept toward the peephole and peeked outside. No one was there. His breath caught in his throat. That wasn't possible, he had just heard the knocking. Then, his phone buzzed again. "Whatever you do, do not look at it." His hands trembled. His gut told him to listen. But curiosity won. Slowly, he unlocked the door and cracked it open just an inch. There was nothing outside. Just the dimly lit hallway. Then he noticed something wrong. The hallway seemed longer than before. It stretched too far, like it never ended. And then, at the very end of the hall, something stepped into view. It was human-shaped, but wrong. Too tall. Its limbs were too thin. Its head twitched unnaturally as if struggling to stay upright. And then it started walking toward him. But it wasn't moving its legs. It was gliding. Faster. Ryan slammed the door shut, heart hammering. He locked every deadbolt, backed away, and grabbed his phone. His hands shook as he typed, "What the hell is that thing?" Mr. Lewis finally replied. "It knocked on my door last night. I made the mistake of opening it." Ryan's blood ran cold. Then another text came through. "I didn't send that first message." Ryan stared at his screen, feeling his stomach drop. His ears started ringing. Then, from behind him, a whisper. "You looked at me. The last thing Ryan felt was ice-cold fingers wrapping around his neck. And then, nothing. Hannah had always been the curious type. When she found a strange, antique invitation tucked inside an old book she'd bought at a garage sale, she couldn't resist. The invitation was written in elaborate script and bore a mysterious, handwritten note. You are cordially invited to attend a gathering of the chosen. Midnight. The old mansion on the hill. No name. No return address. But the words felt too real to be a prank. Hannah wasn't one to ignore an invitation, especially one that felt like it came from another time. She decided she'd go. At midnight, she stood in front of the old mansion. It looked abandoned, its windows blacked out, and the ivy crawling up the walls seemed to have been there for centuries. She felt a chill run down her spine but pushed it aside. She knocked on the door. It creaked open by itself. A figure appeared in the dim light, a tall man, dressed in an elegant suit, wearing a mask. His voice was smooth, almost soothing. Welcome. You're just in time. Hannah stepped inside. The mansion was massive, too large for the small group she assumed would be there. The air smelled faintly of incense and old books. There were hundreds of people, all standing in a circle in the grand hall, their faces hidden behind masks. As she stepped further inside, she noticed something strange, their eyes. Each person's eyes were glowing faintly. Join us, the masked man said, leading her to the center of the circle. At the center of the room was a large, ornate mirror. It was framed with gold and had an eerie glow to it. Look into the mirror, the man instructed. Hannah hesitated. But the moment she looked into it, she felt a rush of coldness grip her chest. The reflection staring back at her wasn't hers. It was a skeleton, her skull grinning back at her from inside the mirror. Her breath caught. She turned to look at the man, but he was gone. And so was everyone else. She was alone in the massive room. But the mirror's reflection didn't change. The skeleton still stared back at her, the grin growing wider. Then it winked. Hannah screamed and backed away. She turned to leave, but the door slammed shut. The mirror's reflection didn't move. But Hannah's did. Her reflection stepped out of the mirror, leaving her body behind. Welcome, Hannah, it whispered. You were always meant to be one of us. Hannah's scream was muffled as she felt herself vanishing, her own reflection taking her place. Ava had recently moved into her new apartment, a cozy little place on the top floor of a rundown building. The kind of place that seemed perfect for someone who loved the quiet and solitude. But it didn't take long for her to notice that something was off. It started with small things, objects out of place, a light flickering, the occasional creak of the floorboards. At first, she thought it was just the quirks of the old building. But then, she began hearing footsteps. Heavy, slow, deliberate steps, coming from the hallway outside her door. She would get up to check, but every time she opened the door, there would be no one there. This happened every night, around 3 a.m. One night, Ava decided she would stay awake. She set up a camera in her hallway, aimed at her door, and waited. The clock ticked, and just as the hands reached 3 a.m., she heard it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps. But when she checked the camera footage, it was something far worse than she expected. The video showed her own reflection walking down the hallway. But it wasn't her. The reflection was distorted, its limbs twisting unnaturally as it moved. Its head snapped in odd directions, like it was searching for something. Terrified, Ava grabbed her phone and tried to call her neighbor, but there was no answer. The air in her apartment grew heavier as she heard the footsteps coming closer. She bolted to the door, ready to escape, but when she opened it, the hallway was dark and empty. Until she saw it, standing in the far corner, its back to her, was her reflection, still in the hallway, but it wasn't a reflection anymore. It was alive. It turned slowly, a grin stretching unnaturally wide across its face. Ava's heart raced as the reflection spoke, its voice low and hollow. "You should have known, Ava," it whispered, its voice dripping with malice. "You invited me in." The door slammed shut behind her, and she felt something cold brush against her skin. The reflection was inside her apartment now. Ava turned around, but there was no one there. Just her own shadow, standing a little too tall behind her. As she backed away, the shadow moved first. And then, from the dark corner of the room, a whisper echoed. "You will never leave again." And there you have it, another terrifying tale to haunt your thoughts. If you made it this far, then I hope you're not looking over your shoulder, because who knows what could be lurking in the shadows. Thanks for watching Creepy Corner Stories. If you enjoyed tonight's stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another tale from the darkness. Remember, the night is full of whispers, and not everything that knocks at your door is human. Stay safe, and until next time, keep your lights on, but not too bright.